Today is the 20th of Menachem Av, which is the Yortzeit, is the 76th Yortzeit of the Rebbe's father, Reb Leivik, as he was called, Reb Levi Yitzchak Schneerson. And it's one of the rare occasions where the English and the Hebrew dates of the Yortzeit coincide. So, just a little bit of a background. Reb Leivik was also from the same family as the previous Rebbe. They were cousins, both of the Schneerson dynasty, and a direct descendant of the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad. So Reb Leivik was known as a very great scholar, a great halachic authority, but he was also known as a great Kabbalist. In fact, most of the writings that we have from him are of a Kabbalistic nature and very deep. Some of it can completely confuse you. So Reb Leivik was, initially, he was the chief rabbi of a big city called Yekaterinoslav, and over the course of the years, he had a few run-ins with the Soviets. It's very interesting to see, because he was one of these personalities who was absolutely adamant to keep the highest degree of Judaism alive, in spite of the communist endeavor to try and destroy it, and he just wouldn't compromise. For example, on one occasion, the Soviet authorities wanted to nationalize the matzah bakeries. And obviously that would mean that there would be a lowering of the standards. You know, from the matzah is the one time of the year that we have an incredibly high standard that we follow. And obviously if they were to nationalize the bakeries, there'd be no way to adhere to those standards. And he fought absolutely tooth and nail against it. Eventually, they got fed up with him, and they sent him off to this region called Tsili, which is in Kazakhstan, to a town called Almaty. That's how they pronounce it today. Almaty, Almata. And he and his wife lived there under terrible, terrible conditions for the last years of their life. Terrible conditions. Sometimes they literally did not have food on the table. And it was during that time that he wrote a lot of his Kabbalistic commentary, literally in the margins of books. So the Rebbe talks about it. The Rebbe talks quite a lot about his father on these Chof of Farbrengens. And on one particular occasion, the Rebbe says that there's a statement from our sages, Kasha misasan shel tzadikim, that the passing of a tzaddik is such a profound concept that it's comparable to the time that Moshe broke the luchos, the two tablets. When Moshe came down from Mount Sinai and he broke the two tablets. And it's very interesting because there are 2 points that the Rebbe makes immediately. The first point is that the expression to say that something is kasha, that something is difficult or challenging, can also mean that it's incredibly profound. For example, the same word is used to describe the splitting of the sea. Now, nobody would say that the splitting of the sea was a bad thing. On the contrary, it was an incredible, immense miracle that was critical not only for the salvation of the Jewish people to be able to escape the Egyptians, but was an essential ingredient in getting us to the point of being able to receive the Torah, because the splitting of the sea represented the opening of the spiritual realms, a really, really powerful and profound moment in history. So it's not necessarily a negative word. Likewise, we also find that inside the ark that the Jews would carry with them, they had the tablets, and they also had the shards of the broken tablets. And they used to carry that with them. For example, when they went to conquer the land of Israel, they used to carry the ark as part of the conquest of Israel, because those broken tablets were in themselves a sign of tremendous schus, merit for the Jewish people. So when it says that it's difficult to have the passing of a tzaddik, as it is difficult, so to speak, to have the breaking of the luchos, it's not necessarily to say that it's a bad thing. In fact, on the contrary, it carries a tremendous merit for the Jewish people. So what's the connection between the two? So he gives it a lengthy and profound explanation. I'll just give you the short version of it. So the Rebbe gives an explanation that you have to understand. When the Torah describes those original tablets, it describes them in two ways. It says that the tablets were fashioned by Hashem's own hand, and then it says that the inscription on the tablets was Hashem's inscription. So there are two things. The actual tablet is something supernatural, and the writing that was engraved into the tablet is also something supernatural. And what we're told is that when Moshe was carrying down the tablets, So the Gemara tells us that as he saw the golden calf, he saw that the letters flew off the tablets, and all that he was left with was the stone. And it uses the expression that the stone had no substance to it, because now the letters had left. So the Rebbe asks a simple question. What do you mean the stones had no substance? The stones, the Torah tells us very clearly, were Hashem's handiwork. And then in addition to that, there was the inscription, which was also supernatural. But the stones were Hashem's handiwork. How can you tell me that the stones have no mamash, they have no substance, now that the letters have left? And he says, because with a whole lot of halachic explanations, quite complex, but he basically explains that in Jewish law, if something changes its status because of something that happened to it, so you have stones. The stones have the status of being divine. They're made by Hashem's hand. Now something happens to the stones. They have this special script inscribed on them. Those stones now change to become something even greater and even more profound. When you take away that inscription, those stones, they might still have holiness and greatness, but it's incomparable to what it was before. It says it's the same thing with the Tzadik. The Tzadik, even the body of the Tzadik is something that is holy. That's what's different between us and a Tzadik. Even though every single one of us has holiness within our body, we also have parts of our body, unfortunately, that have been engaged at some point in time with inappropriate behavior. The Tzaddik's body is absolutely holy from start to finish. Insert into that holy body the incredible neshama of a Tzaddik. That elevates the body to a completely new level. And so just like when the letters were removed from the stone of the luchos, even though the stone was holy stone, but nevertheless it lost its real purpose, in the same way, when the neshama of the tzaddik leaves the body of the tzaddik, even though the body is a holy body, it completely drops in stature compared to what it was when the neshama was involved. And that's why we say that the time of the passing of a tzaddik is, so to speak, difficult, like the time of the destruction of the tablets, because it indicates that there's been the removal of a very profound expression of godliness in this world that was palpable and now is no longer visible. So the bottom line for us is that the day of the passing of a tzaddik, the yortzeit of a tzaddik, is a day just like the broken luchos brought merit to the Jewish people. So too, the passing of a tzaddik, even though it's an incredibly difficult thing and a major, so to speak, downgrade of the holiness of that individual and their impact in this world, on the one hand, on the other hand, it's something that invokes in us a tremendous awakening and an opportunity and potential for connection and for greatness. So we should use the day well. And please God, it should be a day that brings us a lot of bracha and everything that we need in our lives.